Thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe to watch our next video. Thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe to watch our next video.
Before we continue, subscribe to Racism Story and join thousands discovering stories that challenge prejudice and reveal the truth behind First Impress Next.
Keanu Reeves parked his motorcycle across the street from Kellerman High School at 4:52 in the afternoon and just sat there for a while, helmet still on, engine ticking as it cooled. He was 61 years old, one of the most recognizable faces on the planet, and right now he was invisible under a black Keanu Reeves and a pair of scratched-up boots he'd owned since 2003. The building in front of him hadn't changed much. Same brick, same flagpole, same chain-link fence around the baseball diamond. Erie, Pennsylvania didn't get much traffic in September, and nobody driving past gave the man on the motorcycle a second look. He pulled off the helmet and set it on the seat. 39 years since he'd walked those halls as a scrawny 15-year-old with a duffel bag and a chip on his shoulder the size of Lake Erie. He'd come back twice since becoming famous, both times for quick photo-op visits arranged by publicists, in and out in 90 minutes, a check for the drama department, a wave for the local news crew. This time nobody knew he was coming. Not his assistant, not his manager, nobody. He crossed the street, pulled open the main door, and stepped into a hallway that smelled exactly the way it had in 1987 floor wax, old paper, the ghost of 1,000 cafeteria lunches. A trophy case near the entrance held a photo of him from his junior year, grainy and yellowed, next to a newer one from a charity visit in 2019. He didn't stop to look at it. He walked instead toward the gym, the way his feet remembered before his mind caught up. The doors were propped open. Somewhere inside, a mop bucket rolled across tile with a sound like a small metal storm. Keanu Reeves stood in the doorway for a moment, and that's when he saw him, an old man in gray work pants, moving along the far wall with the slow, careful rhythm of somebody who had done this exact motion 10,000 times before. White hair, bent shoulders, a name patch stitched crooked above his shirt pocket that read Harold. Keanu Reeves felt something shift in his chest, quiet and sudden, like a door unlatching. "Excuse me," he said, walking closer. "Is that you, Harold Doyle?" The old man looked up, squinting through glasses that had slid halfway down his nose. "Gym's closed for cleaning, unless you're picking up a kid from practice. I used to go to school here," Keanu Reeves said. "Class of '87. Harold set the mop against the wall and studied him, really studied him, the way people do when a face is familiar but the name won't come." 3 full seconds passed, then his eyebrows shot up so fast his glasses nearly fell off. "Sweet mother of you're that kid, the Keanu Reeves boy." He pointed a shaking finger. "You're on the side of a bus downtown right now, aren't you? Some movie poster." Keanu Reeves laughed, and it came out easier than he expected. "Guilty. Well, I'll be." Harold wiped his palm on his pants before offering it. 40 years and you come waltzing back into my gym looking like you just walked out of a magazine." "I'm 79 years old, son. Nothing surprises me anymore. You just proved me wrong." Keanu Reeves shook his hand and noticed how light it felt, how thin the skin had gotten over the knuckles. 79, Keanu Reeves repeated. "And you're still working full shifts? Somebody's got to keep the floors from turning into an ice rink." Harold shrugged, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. 44 years next spring. "I started here in 1981. 44 years. Keanu Reeves did the math without meaning to, and it landed somewhere heavy in his stomach. He remembered now, really remembered the mornings Harold used to unlock this exact gym at 5:40 a.m. So a skinny kid with something to prove could get shots up before homeroom. He remembered the night he got cut from the varsity squad, how he'd sat alone on these same bleachers until the sky outside the high windows went black, certain his life was already over at 15. He remembered a voice in the hallway that he wasn't supposed to hear. "You got a minute?" Keanu Reeves asked. "I'd like to buy you dinner. Tonight if you're free." Harold blinked at him like he'd just been asked to fly to the moon, "Mister." Keanu Reeves, "I finished my shift at 6:15. I've got mop water on my boots and a wife waiting on a sandwich." Bring her too, Keanu Reeves said. My treat, anywhere you like. There was a long pause, filled only by the hum of the gym's fluorescent lights. Funny. There's a place called Denny's Corner on 5th Street, Harold finally said. Been there since 1968. Funny. Best patty melt in the county, or at least that's what I've been telling myself for 40 years. Funny. Denny's Corner it is, Keanu Reeves. 6:30? Harold nodded slowly, still looking like he wasn't entirely sure this wasn't a dream he'd wake up from at any second. Funny. And Keanu Reeves, a man who had shared screens with legends, who had a star waiting for him on a sidewalk in Los Angeles, walked back out to his motorcycle, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Funny. He had no idea yet how far this one dinner was going to take him. Funny. Denny's Corner had red vinyl booths, a black and white checkerboard floor, and a waitress named Connie, who nearly dropped a full pot of coffee when she recognized the man sliding into booth number 7. Funny. Keanu Reeves asked her, kindly but firmly, to keep it quiet, and to her credit, she managed it mostly. Funny. Harold arrived at 6:41, 11 minutes late, wearing a clean button-down shirt that had clearly been ironed for the occasion. Funny. Beside him, in a wheelchair with a slightly squeaky left wheel, was his wife, Dorothy, silver hair pinned neatly, a floral cardigan buttoned to the top, eyes bright behind bifocals. Funny. Sorry we're late, Harold said. Getting in and out of the van takes some doing these days. Funny. You're worth the wait, Keanu Reeves said, standing to help maneuver the wheelchair to the end of the table. Funny. Mrs. Doyle, it's an honor. Oh, call me Dorothy, she said, waving a hand. Funny. Mrs. Doyle sounds like somebody's mother-in-law, which I suppose I am, but not to you. Funny. She peered at him. You really don't look like your posters. You look tired, if you don't mind me saying. Funny. I don't mind at all, Keanu Reeves said and meant it. Over cheeseburgers and 2 chocolate malts, Harold talked. Funny. He talked about coming to Erie in 1979 after the steel plant, where he'd worked for 6 years, shut its doors without warning. About landing the janitor job at Kellerman 2 years later, almost by accident. About how it turned into the only job he ever wanted again. Funny. He talked about watching thousands of kids pass through those halls, the ones who became doctors, the ones who became mechanics, the one boy who joined the Marines and never came home, the one girl who came back years later to teach freshman biology in the same building where she'd once been a freshman herself. Funny. You remember the day I got cut from varsity? Keanu Reeves asked quietly, somewhere around 7:50, after the plates had been cleared. Funny. Harold's brow furrowed. Cut? You? Sophomore year. Coach Baranski posted the list and my name wasn't on it. Funny. I sat in that gym in the dark for 2 hours afterward, shooting free throws, because I didn't know what else to do with myself. Funny. I remember that gym being dark a lot of nights, Harold said slowly. You were the one always in there. Funny. You came in to lock up. You didn't know I could hear you in the equipment room. But you told Coach Baranski he'd made a mistake. Funny. You said you'd watched me shoot for a year, and I had something most kids don't have. Funny. You told him he'd regret it. Harold stared at him, genuinely stunned. I said that? Funny. You did. I never forgot it. Keanu Reeves' voice caught, just slightly, on the next part. Funny. I was ready to quit that night, Harold. I'd already cleaned out my locker, but I heard you say that, and I decided I'd rather die trying than prove you wrong. Funny. Dorothy reached over and squeezed her husband's hand, her eyes shining. 42 years old, Harold said softly, more to himself than anyone else, and I don't even remember saying it. Funny. I do, Keanu Reeves said. Every word. The waitress brought the check. Keanu Reeves took it before Harold's hand had fully reached across the table. Funny. Can I drive you two home? He asked. I'd like to see where you live, if that's all right. Funny. Catch up a little more. Harold hesitated in a way that made something in Keanu Reeves' gut go quiet and watchful. Funny. It's nothing fancy, he said. Not like what you're used to. Harold, Keanu Reeves said. Funny. I grew up 2 streets over from the scrapyard. I know what nothing fancy looks like. Funny. The house on Larkspur Lane was small, single-story, with a sagging front porch and a wooden ramp someone had clearly built by hand, its boards already starting to warp. Funny. Keanu Reeves noticed the details before he'd even parked, the missing shingles on the northeast corner of the roof, the crack running the length of the front walkway, wide enough that Dorothy's wheelchair had to detour around it entirely. Inside, everything was clean, worn, and arranged with obvious care. Family photographs covered nearly every wall, a wedding photo from 1968, children in graduation gowns, grandchildren in Halloween costumes. On a side table sat a scrapbook with a cracked red cover, its spine held together with a strip of packing tape. That everything I've been saving about you, Harold admitted, a little embarrassed when he caught Keanu Reeves looking. You and a few other kids who made something of themselves. Nothing weird about it. Just proud, I suppose. Keanu Reeves opened it carefully. Newspaper clippings, brittle and yellow, went back to 1987 for film review. His first magazine cover, an article about his charity foundation from 2011. 44 years of somebody quietly keeping track. I never told my own mother half this much about my career, Keanu Reeves said, and Harold laughed for the first time all evening, a real laugh, deep and surprised. Dorothy wheeled herself toward the kitchen to put on coffee, and it was then that Keanu Reeves noticed the hallway narrow, maybe 30 inches across, far too tight for a wheelchair to pass through without scraping both walls. He noticed the bathroom door, standing open, showing a doorway that couldn't have been more than 26 inches wide. And when Harold led him toward what used to be the dining room, now converted into a bedroom, Keanu Reeves saw a hospital bed, pushed against one wall, and on the floor beside it, a thin twin mattress with a single flat pillow. I don't fit in the hospital bed with her, Harold explained quietly, before Keanu Reeves could even ask. And our old bed's too high for Dot to transfer into safely on her own. So. He shrugged, the same shrug he'd used earlier about the mopping. It's temporary. Keanu Reeves did the math again. 3 years since the stroke Harold had mentioned at dinner. 3 years sleeping on a mattress on the floor at 79 years old. How's Dorothy's therapy going? Keanu Reeves asked, keeping his voice level. Insurance covered 10 sessions, Harold said. We do what we can at home now. Bought some resistance bands off the internet. Dot's determined, though. Woman stubborn as a Pennsylvania mule. I heard that, Dorothy called from the kitchen, and both men smiled despite themselves. Keanu Reeves stayed until nearly 11, long past when he'd planned to leave, taking in every detail he could, without making it obvious. He was taking in anything. At all, the thermostat set to 66 degrees, even though the September nights were already getting cold. The 20-year-old television with a crack in the corner of the screen, the roll of duct tape holding down a curling edge of carpet by the front door. Driving back to his hotel that night, Keanu Reeves didn't turn on the radio. He just drove, replaying the mattress on the floor over and over in his mind, and by the time he pulled into the parking lot at 11:47 p.m., a plan had already started taking shape, rough, unformed, but absolutely certain. He wasn't getting on his flight to Los Angeles tomorrow. Not yet. He called Harold at 7:15 the next morning, catching him already at work. Any chance I could take some photos of that scrapbook today? Keanu Reeves asked. I'd love to show my own mother some of those old clippings. Sure thing, Harold said, sounding pleased. I finish at 6. That gave Keanu Reeves the entire day. He spent it on the phone, first to his business manager, Karen Whitfield, back in Los Angeles. I need you to look into something for me, he told her. A trust, medical coverage. A house renovation, fast, and I mean fast, like 10 days. Money isn't the concern. Discretion is. There was a pause on the line. Who's the trust for, Keanu Reeves? A man who kept a gym unlocked for a kid nobody believed in, Keanu Reeves said. Trust me, I'll explain everything tonight. Next, he called a contractor, a friend of a friend named Dave Reynolds, who ran a construction company 2 towns over and had done quiet renovation work for a few names in the industry before. Reynolds arrived at Keanu Reeves' hotel by noon, and Keanu Reeves showed him photographs he'd taken discreetly the night before on his phone. The narrow hallway, the cracked walkway, the mattress on the floor. Complete overhaul, done right. Normally takes 8 to 10 weeks minimum, Reynolds said, scratching his jaw as he flipped through the images. I've got 10 days, Keanu Reeves said. Reynolds looked up. That's not a renovation, mister. Keanu Reeves, that's a miracle. Then let's build one, Keanu Reeves said. Money's not a limit. Crew size isn't a limit. I need round-the-clock shifts, and I need this to stay completely off social media until I say otherwise. No exceptions. By 2:30 that afternoon, Reynolds had assembled a rough number, 31 workers across 3 shifts, a materials list, and a promise that if everything landed on schedule, they could be finished by the following Thursday 9 days out. Keanu Reeves' next call went to an old friend from his early theater days, an actor named Tom Bradley, who'd since become one of Keanu Reeves' closest confidants. Tom picked up on the second ring. Keanu Reeves, to what do I owe this honor? I need your help with something, Tommy. Nothing to do with a movie. Then I'm already in, Tom said. What do you need? Keanu Reeves explained it all. Harold, the gym, the mattress on the floor, 44 years of quiet kindness that nobody outside a handful of grateful strangers had ever properly thanked. Tom didn't ask a single question about logistics or cost. Tell me when and where, he said simply. And Keanu Reeves, bring in Nathan and Ray too. They'll want in on this. By evening, Keanu Reeves had a team. A contractor, a lawyer setting up the trust, a financial advisor named Priya Nair, working out the numbers for a monthly income that would cover Harold's lost salary twice over. A home health care specialist named Marcus Webb, who'd previously helped set up in-home care for Keanu Reeves' own father, and 3 fellow actors willing to show up quietly and do whatever was needed. No press, no photos, no exceptions. At 8 p.m., Keanu Reeves took photographs to the school's principal, a soft-spoken woman named Grace Alvarez, and asked for one favor: a week of paid leave for Harold, disguised as a scheduled maintenance shutdown. I've never seen the school closed for a week in my 16 years here, Grace said. But for Harold Doyle, consider it done. That man is the reason half this staff still has their sanity some days. The final piece came together at 9:40 p.m. when Keanu Reeves booked an accessible beachfront rental, arranged transportation, and drafted a cover story about a Kellerman alumni reunion week that would keep Harold and Dorothy comfortably occupied and 100 miles away from their own front door. By midnight, sitting alone in his hotel room with a legal pad covered in numbers and names, Keanu Reeves realized he hadn't felt this alive in years. Not on a red carpet, not on a film set, not anywhere. Somewhere out there, a house on Larkspur Lane was about to change forever, and so, though he didn't fully know it yet, was he. The following evening, Keanu Reeves hosted a dinner at a private room in a restaurant downtown, and when Harold and Dorothy arrived, they found Tom Bradley, Nathan Cole, and Ray Delgado already waiting at the table. 3 faces most of America would recognize instantly, dressed down in plain shirts, laughing like old friends rather than movie stars. You've got to be joking, Harold said, freezing in the doorway. I've watched every one of you on my television for 30 years. And we've heard nothing but good things about you for the last 2 days, Nathan said, standing to shake his hand. Keanu Reeves doesn't stop talking. Over dinner, Keanu Reeves raised the subject he'd rehearsed all afternoon. I'm putting together a small reunion for some Kellerman alumni, he said, a week at the lake. Everything covered. I'd love for you both to come. Dorothy's hands fluttered to her chest. Oh, we couldn't possibly. Principal Alvarez already approved the time off, Keanu Reeves said gently. And the house is fully wheelchair accessible. I made sure of it myself. Harold and Dorothy exchanged a long look, the kind of look shared by 2 people who had learned, over 58 years of marriage, to have entire conversations without words. Finally, Harold nodded. Well, he said, when was the last time we had a vacation, Dot? 1994, Dorothy said instantly, without hesitation. Niagara Falls, you got us lost for 3 hours. The whole table laughed, and just like that it was settled. Friday morning, an accessible van pulled away from Larkspur Lane at 9:12 a.m. with Tom Bradley behind the wheel, and Harold and Dorothy in the back, already deep in conversation about a card game Tom had promised to teach them. The moment the van turned the corner and disappeared, 3 work trucks and a dumpster rolled onto the street, and Dave Reynolds stepped out into the front yard with a clipboard already covered in check marks. Right on schedule, he told Keanu Reeves. 31 workers, 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, starting now. What followed was 9 days that Keanu Reeves would remember for the rest of his life. The old roof came off within the first 6 hours, replaced with new decking and shingles rated for another 50 years. Inside, the narrow hallway wall came down entirely, widened to 52 inches to give Dorothy's wheelchair room to move freely. The old bathroom was gutted down to the studs and rebuilt with a roll-in shower, bars, and a sink Dorothy could reach from her chair. In the kitchen, half the counters were lowered 11 inches. A hospital-grade adjustable bed, wide enough for both Harold and Dorothy to sleep in together for the first time in 3 years, was ordered and set aside for delivery on day 8. By the 3rd day, word had started to spread through the neighborhood quietly at first, then not so quietly at all. A woman across the street who'd lived beside the Doyles for 26 years brought over sandwiches for the crew and told Keanu Reeves, unprompted, that Harold had mowed her lawn for 2 straight months after her husband passed, without ever once being asked. A former student named Angela Ruiz showed up with a check for $3,000 raised by the current junior class, explaining that Harold had let her finish a science project in an unlocked classroom at 6A. The morning it was due, back in 2004, and she'd never forgotten it. A man named Curtis Boone, now a police sergeant, said Harold had spent 2 years quietly mentoring him through a rough patch in high school and never once mentioned it to another soul. Put it toward his medical fund, Keanu Reeves told Angela when she tried to hand him the donation. I've already got that covered, but start a scholarship in his name instead, something that lasts. By day 6, the school's art department had painted a mural for the newly widened living room wall, and the district superintendent had approved a permanent display case for the front hallway of Kellerman High, honoring 44 years of service. A local flooring company donated hardwood at cost. A garden center owner named Susan Whitfield, no relation to Karen, showed up with 2 truckloads of plants, having heard that Dorothy used to garden before her stroke, and personally built 4 raised beds low enough for a wheelchair to reach. What had started as one man's private mission had become, without anyone quite planning it that way, an entire town's quiet act of gratitude. By 3:30 a.m., on the 9th night, the last coat of exterior paint, a warm pale blue that Dorothy had once mentioned, loving in an old magazine, had dried under portable floodlights, and Dave Reynolds stood in the driveway with Keanu Reeves, both men running on coffee and almost no sleep. It's done, Reynolds said. Every wall, every wire, every inch. It's perfect, Keanu Reeves said, and for the first time in 9 days he let himself feel it. The reveal happened at exactly noon the following day. Word had spread just enough that a crowd had gathered a block away, kept behind a stretch of caution tape at Keanu Reeves' request. Students, teachers, neighbors, and nearly everyone who had touched the project in some way over the past 9 days. Principal Grace Alvarez stood near the front with a banner rolled under one arm. Tom, Nathan, and Ray waited near the new front porch, dressed down as always. At 12:04, the accessible van turned onto Larkspur Lane, and the street went quiet. Harold's face, visible through the windshield, shifted from casual conversation to open confusion the moment he saw the crowd. The van stopped. Tom stepped out first and opened the side door. "What in the world is going on?" Harold asked, climbing out slowly, eyes moving over the crowd, the banner, the transformed yard behind them. Keanu Reeves walked forward and helped Dorothy's chair down the new ramp himself. "Welcome home," he said. Harold turned toward the house and simply stopped, one hand pressed flat against his chest. The peeling paint was gone. The cracked walkway was gone, replaced by a smooth path wide enough for 2 wheelchairs side by side. The porch no longer sagged. A new mailbox, hand-painted with flowers by a local art teacher, stood at exactly the right height for Dorothy to reach from her chair. "Keanu Reeves," Harold said, voice cracking on the single syllable. "What did you do?" "That's just the outside," Keanu Reeves said quietly. "Go on in." Dorothy went first, wheeling herself through a front door wide enough that she didn't have to think twice, into a living room flooded with natural light from windows that hadn't existed 9 days earlier. She turned in a slow circle, taking in the hardwood floors, the open layout, the built-in glass cabinet in the corner that now held Harold Scrubcock under soft, dedicated lighting. "Oh my word," she whispered. "James, look at all of it." Harold followed her through the kitchen, running his fingers along countertops he could actually help cook at without bending. He stood in the doorway of the new bathroom for a long moment, silent, and when he reached the bedroom, one bed, wide enough for both of them, no mattress on the floor, anywhere in sight, his knees seemed to give slightly, and he had to steady himself against the doorframe. "I don't sleep on the floor anymore," he said, almost to himself. "I don't have to sleep on the floor." Keanu Reeves, standing a respectful distance back, felt his own throat tighten. He led them to the dining room table, where a folder sat waiting. "This house is paid off," he said. "Free and clear, no mortgage. And there's a trust that will cover your medical expenses for the rest of your lives, plus a monthly income more than double your old salary. You never have to work another day unless you want to, Harold." Harold's hands shook as he opened the folder. "This is too much," he said. "It's not enough," Keanu Reeves replied. "Not for 44 years of what you've given this town." Outside, the crib became filling in one by one, then in small groups, each carrying a story. A woman who said Harold had once fixed her car in the school parking lot so she could get her sick infant to the hospital. A man who said Harold had quietly paid for his prom suit in 1998 and never mentioned it again. Curtis Boone, the police sergeant, stood in the doorway and simply said, "You changed my whole direction, sir. I wanted you to know that finally, out loud." Harold sat down heavily in a chair someone had rolled toward him, overwhelmed, listening to 40 years of quiet kindness spoken back to him for the first time. Later, once the crowd had thinned and the afternoon light had turned gold across the new backyard patio, Keanu Reeves led Harold and Dorothy to a small room at the back of the house, formerly a cluttered storage space, now a proper office with a desk facing the garden and a single framed document hanging above it. "The Harold Doyle Foundation," Harold read aloud, squinting at the paper. What is this?" "A foundation for school staff who never get thanked," Keanu Reeves explained. "Janitors, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, the people who quietly hold schools together and get overlooked every single day. We've already raised $3.1 million, and we'd like you to be its first executive director." Harold looked at the document, then at Dorothy, then back at Keanu Reeves. "I'm no public speaker," he said. "Never have been. Your life already speaks for you," Keanu Reeves said. "I'll stand right beside you for as long as you need me to." Dorothy reached for her husband's hand. "Say yes, James," she said softly. "You've spent your whole life opening doors for other people. Let this be the door somebody finally opens for you." Harold sat down slowly at the new desk, running his palm across its surface, and after a long quiet moment he nodded. "My father used to tell me," he said, "that you could just be mopping cop floors. But you ought to do it like you're changing the world, because you never know whose life you might be touching." He looked up at Keanu Reeves, eyes wet. Guess he was on to something. "He was right," Keanu Reeves said, "and now everybody knows it." That night, after the last guests had gone home and the street on Larkspur Lane had gone quiet again, Keanu Reeves sat alone for a moment on the new front porch, looking back through the window at Harold and Dorothy moving easily through their own living room for the first time in years. He thought about a 15-year-old kid sitting in a dark gym, one bounce of a basketball echoing off empty bleachers, certain his life was already over. He thought about how one unlocked door, held open by a man who never asked for anything in return, had led to every single good thing that came after. Before he left, Keanu Reeves set a small card on top of the scrapbook, tucked beside a fresh, empty page waiting to be filled. "Harold, you believed in me before I believed in myself. Now it's your turn to walk through a door someone opened for you." With deepest gratitude, Keanu Reeves. He rode back to his hotel that night without the radio on. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he wasn't thinking about his next film, his next premiere, or his next flight out. He was just thinking about a mop, a key, and a man who had 44 years proving that the smallest acts of kindness are never really small at all. If this story moved you, that's because somewhere in your own life, there's probably a herald, a person who quietly opened a door for you and never once asked to be thanked. Maybe today's the day you finally tell them. Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and educational purposes only. All characters, names, businesses, and events depicted are entirely fictional and do not represent any real person, living or dead, or any actual establishment. Any resemblance to real persons, organizations, or events is purely coincidental. This content is intended to explore themes of human dignity, workplace ethics, and social justice through narrative storytelling. It does not make factual claims about any individual, company, or institution.